Welcome to America's Kitchen Table. My name is Judy Barlow. I am the NFRW Chairman of the Legislation and Research Committee and your host for the podcast today. Today we have on our program Senator Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz represents 30 million Texans in the U.S. Senate as a passionate fighter for limited government, national security, and economic growth. He is also leading the fight in the Senate to support Texas jobs, hold big tech accountable to the American people, and secure our border. We're excited to have Senator Cruz on with us today. Senator Cruz, polling shows us that illegal immigration and the border are the number one political issue facing our country today. Every state is a border state. Obviously, it started with Texas, but now we're seeing that across the nation with our hospitals, with our schools, the detrimental effects we're seeing on all of that, the increased crime, increased drug trafficking. Fill us in on what you're seeing and you're hearing from your point of view and what we are doing to stop the issues that we're seeing.
Well, Judy, you're absolutely right. Let me say thank you for having me on the podcast. It's great to be with you, and thank you for the great work you do and all the incredible women at NFRW across the country. Y'all are fighting to defend our nation, and you make an extraordinary difference, and so I'm grateful for it. Listen, the question you asked is enormously important. What is happening at our southern border, there is no precedent in American history for what is happening. It is an outright crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is a public safety crisis. It is a national security crisis. I spend a lot of time at the southern border. I go out on midnight patrol with the Border Patrol agents. We are witnessing an invasion of our country. In 3.5 years since Joe Biden has been president, we have had over 11 million illegal immigrants come into this country. It has never been remotely this bad, and what's infuriating is it is man-made, it is deliberate. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and every Democrat in the Senate, every Democrat in the House, they want this invasion, and they're willing to look the other way at the death and human suffering that is occurring. You know, last year, Alejandro Mayorkas was testifying in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I asked him, I said, how many migrants died last year crossing illegally into this country? He said, I don't know, I have no idea. The answer was 853, according to his own Department of Homeland Security, but he doesn't care enough to know that it's roughly 3 people a day are dying. And when you go down to South Texas, farmers and ranchers, they show you photograph after photograph of dead bodies they find on their ranches, elderly people, pregnant women, little kids, toddlers who are left to die. You cannot see what is happening when you're in South Texas. You can't see the people dying. You can't see the children who are being brutalized by human traffickers. When you look in the eyes of little girls and little boys who've been subject to horrific treatment by these traffickers, when you look in the eyes of the women who have been sexually assaulted by human traffickers, when you see the people dying of drug overdoses day after day after day, when you see the crimes that these criminals that Joe Biden is releasing into every state are committing, you cannot defend this. It is indefensible, and I'll tell you, it is endangering every single community in America. You might think, if you don't live in Texas, if you're not on the border, you might think, well, gosh, I'm not in a border state. Well, I'll tell you what's happening. These groups come in and they turn themselves in to the Border Patrol. They go look for Border Patrol agents. They turn themselves in. And the Biden administration asks, where do you want to go? And then Joe Biden and the Democrats, they put them on planes, they put them on buses, and they send them to every community in America. And we right now have illegal immigrants being released in whatever state you live in. They're being released there. They're committing crimes there. They're robbing people there. And they're paying off the debts they owe the cartels, because just about everyone who comes in owes thousands of dollars to the cartels that they have to pay off. Right. Or else the cartels will kill their families.
Right. And you know, we see this. We're all sitting watching TV with our families at night, just like you are. And we see all of this going on and we think, why can our Republican senators and congressmen not stop this? And as chairman, I see what you guys are trying to do. You are trying to pass bills. We do have HR2. We have Senate Bill 2824, which is the one that you introduced, which is a border security bill.
Right.
But most people don't realize that those bills that you guys are working so hard for are sitting in the democratically controlled Senate. And we have a Democrat president. So you guys are fighting the good fight, but we're at a standstill right now, to stalemate, until we can get this election past us and get you guys reelected, get our President Trump elected. And that's important for your reelection and for getting the other, getting strong Republicans in place to gain control of the Senate, to gain control of the House, to support the president. Because if we don't get that, the president won't have the strength. So would you like to talk about that? The importance of our women backing you and the other candidates.
Right. Yeah, look, that's exactly right. If you look at what caused this crisis, it was Joe Biden, who's doing something no president has done in the history of our country. He's just defying the law. The law says that when you apprehend an illegal immigrant, you deport them, you send them back home. And that's what every previous president has done. You know, I've joked that Biden has done something that I previously thought was impossible. He made me miss Barack Obama. And I say that, listen, I disagreed with Obama on a lot of issues, but you know, on immigration, Obama by and large followed the law. Obama deported millions of people. The left got mad at him. They called him the deporter in chief. What Joe Biden is doing is when they apprehend someone, they just let them go. And our whole system breaks down when you have a president who just utterly defies the law. In the Senate, I've been leading the fight to secure the border for 12 years. And I'll tell you, when Trump was president, we had incredible success. Joe Biden inherited the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years. I worked hand in hand with Donald Trump, and we made incredible success securing the borders. We caused the numbers to plummet. And Biden came in and broke the system the first week and caused the crisis. We went from the lowest rate of illegal immigration in 45 years to today, the highest rate ever recorded. And that's because Joe Biden and the Democrats, they look at these 11 million illegal immigrants and they see future Democrat voters. This is all about political power. But the good news, Judy, is we can and will fix this. Number one, we've got to reelect Donald Trump as president, and he will reverse those policies on day one and begin deporting people. And we will see on January 20th of next year, we'll see the numbers plummet when we have a president who enforces the law. But we also need to keep our majority in the House and grow our majority in the House, and we need to retake the Senate. And I tell you, we've got the best chance to retake the Senate in this election we have had in many years. We've got a lot of really contested Senate races in red and purple states where we could defeat Democrats. And the one race that we're on defense on is my race in Texas. Chuck Schumer has made explicit, I'm his number one target in the country. And Chuck Schumer and George Soros are going to spend between $100 and $150 million trying to beat me. They're not going to succeed, but they're not going to succeed because of the incredible leadership of TFRW and Republican women standing up and fighting to defend Texas and defend our whole country.
That's right. And it is important, as sometimes when we see elections like this come up and we see what's happened to our country, we think we're going to clean house and we're going to bring in all new people. That's not the case this time. We need to, you guys have a proven track record, and we need to support our Republican candidates and senators such as yourself who have been out there fighting the fight and know what's going on. And you do have a plan in place starting January 1st to fix this situation. And we're now seeing it on the northern border as well. So can you address that issue? And another thing too, our Border Patrol, they're down there trying to take care of everything, but we're hearing that they don't have all of the equipment that they need to do the job. We're hearing that some of the equipment is broken and that the Biden administration is refusing to fix the equipment that tracks the illegal aliens that are coming over, to the tune of like 30% less being reported gotaways.
Right.
Have you any insight on that?
So there's no doubt we need to invest more in the material and tools and manpower to secure the border. We need We need more planes. We need more drones. We need more boats. We need more surveillance equipment. All of that is important. And I've repeatedly introduced legislation to provide that. I've introduced legislation to triple the size of the Border Patrol because boots on the ground matters. But here's an important point, Judy. We actually don't need any of that to turn this around. It would help. It would be better. But we don't need any of it. We need a change in policy. And the number one change in policy that matters is, what do you do when you apprehend someone here illegally? And if the answer is you put them on a plane and you fly them back home, we have seen, and we saw this when Trump was president, the numbers plummet. If they know, because what happens when people come across, they show up, they all have cell phones, and when the Biden administration, when the Democrats release them, they pick up the phone and they call their friends and family back home and they say, hey, guess what? If you come here, you get to stay. And so that policy can be reversed on day one, and it doesn't take a single additional Border Patrol agent. It just takes the political leadership letting the Border Patrol do their job. They want to do their job. And listen, I'll give an example, a case a lot of people have focused on and know a lot about, which is Laken Riley. Laken Riley
Yes.
was a beautiful 22-year-old woman, a nursing student in Georgia. And she was murdered by an illegal alien who Joe Biden released. And if you look at the facts are infuriating. So this illegal alien came from Venezuela, and we caught him. We apprehended him in El Paso, Texas. We had him in our custody. If Joe Biden had simply followed the law and put him on a plane and flown him back to Venezuela, Laken Riley would still be alive. But instead, Joe Biden and the Democrats released him, let him go, ignored the law. And what happened? He went from El Paso, Texas to New York City, where he was arrested again. We caught him a second time, this time for endangering the safety of a child. But New York City is a sanctuary city. And so if they had simply followed the law, if they'd locked him up and put him in jail, Laken Riley would still be alive. If they'd put him on a plane and flown him back to Venezuela, Laken Riley would still be alive, but they let him go. And he came down to Georgia, and Laken Riley was out jogging, and this illegal immigrant beat her to death with a brick. That's who Joe Biden released. And I'll tell you, Judy, that is happening every week. Another name many people have not heard is Jeremy Caceres. Jeremy Caceres was a 2-year-old little boy in Prince George's County, Maryland, just a few miles from Washington, D.C. He was murdered by an illegal alien that Joe Biden released. There was another case just a few weeks ago in Boston, Massachusetts. Tragically, a 15-year-old girl who is severely disabled was raped, not only by an illegal immigrant that Biden released, but an illegal immigrant that Biden flew from Haiti. It wasn't even someone crossing illegally, flew from Haiti to Boston, Massachusetts, released him, and he turned around and raped this 15-year-old girl. That is happening every week, and it is horrible, and it is wrong, and it's going to stop next year when we have a president who actually follows the law.
I agree. And I think we're seeing the same thing. We're worried about the southern border, but as I mentioned, we're seeing the northern border being attacked also. What is happening with the northern border? Are we addressing that, looking at that issue? How are we handling that?
Well, look, the Biden administration, unfortunately, is not. When it comes to border security at either the southern or the northern border, if you turn yourselves in, you get to stay, and they just defy the law. And I'll tell you, it's a huge risk with regard to gotaways. The gotaways are the people we're aware of,
right,
but we didn't apprehend. And there are about 2 million gotaways, and they're much more likely to be criminals. They're much more likely to be gang members, and they're much more likely to be terrorists. Look, one of the really disturbing things, we have today a greater likelihood, I believe, of a major terrorist attack in this country than any time since September 11th. That we have, Iran has called for global jihad on America. Hamas has called for global jihad on America. Hezbollah has called for global jihad on America. And the Biden administration has opened up our borders, basically put out a red carpet for any terrorist who wants to murder Americans to just walk in and to get to stay. And I think we are really endangering the safety and security of families all across our country.
I agree. And I think that's why we have to really start working hard now on, we have an entire committee that works on campaigns, but we've got to get together or pull together as a nation. Yep. Democrats, independents, non-affiliated voters, everybody, I think even the Democrats see what's going on now. And some of them are supportive of you guys and the bills that you're trying to put forward. And I think it's important for our listeners to know that you have bills in the Senate that are sitting there right now that we could take action on to suppress and to stop some of this illegal immigration acts that are going on. We have a border bill. They talk about, President Biden will talk about the border bill that we are ignoring as Republicans, but we do have a border bill there that they are ignoring. So you guys are out there trying to fight the fight and make a difference. And we're just at the political reality that we're in. It makes it hard for you guys to do it right now.
Well, that's right. And look, the border bill that Biden and the Democrats are talking about, they call it a bipartisan bill, but it was a terrible bill. It was a Chuck Schumer bill, and it was designed not to secure the border. In fact, it would have made the situation worse. So under the terms of that Chuck Schumer bill that they blame Republicans for not passing, that bill codified catch and release. It put into law the terrible policy of Joe Biden of letting illegal immigrants go. It normalized 1.8 million illegal immigrants a year. That's nearly it's 5,000 a day. That's nearly 2 million a year. It put that in place in perpetuity. It gave immediate work permits to illegal immigrants released in this country. It provided taxpayer-funded lawyers to illegal immigrants. It gave billions of dollars to the NGOs that are helping the human traffickers. It was designed to put into law this open borders invasion that we have. And Judy, you made a very important point about Democrats, and I want to draw a distinction. There are absolutely Democrat voters in Texas and in every other state who are ready to support Republicans now because they cannot stand how extreme the Biden administration has gotten. In Texas, I've rolled out a coalition called Democrats for Cruz. I've got people like Pete Sines, who was the former mayor of Laredo, an elected Democrat, who has endorsed my reelection because he said, as when he was mayor and I was senator, I worked hand in hand with him on job creation and helping small businesses, and I'm leading the fight to secure the border. And as the mayor of Laredo, he's seen the harm from illegal immigration. I've got Sheriff Danny Dominguez, who is the sheriff of Presidio County, that is on the border in Texas. He's got 108 miles of the Rio Grande River in his county. And he's been an elected Democrat for 28 years. He's endorsed my reelection campaign because he wants a senator who supports law enforcement and will fight to secure the border. So in Texas and across the country, there are lots of common sense Democrat voters who we ought to be reaching out to because they don't support open borders. They don't support the radical policies of the Democrats. But you got to draw a distinction between them and the Washington Democrats, the current elected Democrats. In the Senate, every one of them, 100% of them supports these open borders. Repeatedly, I've forced votes on legislation to secure the border. Every Democrat votes no. I'm the author of Kate's Law. Kate's Law is named for Kate Steinle, a beautiful young woman in California murdered by an illegal immigrant released who had been in and out of jail repeatedly. Kate's Law says anyone with an aggravated felony will face a mandatory minimum prison sentence and go to jail. Every single Democrat, all of them in the Senate, have voted against Kate's Law. And so we have an opportunity with Democrat voters, but we also got to know the truth that even the Democrats who pretend to be moderate when they're campaigning, they're not telling the truth because they voted in favor of open borders over and over and over again.
Right. I'm getting a notice from your team that you're due for some more votes, but wrap up by telling us, give us some information about your podcast. You have a podcast called The Verdict a couple of times a week, and why that's important for our listeners to watch. And then how can we support you and our other Republicans and bring a change about?
Well, terrific. I appreciate that. So that's right. I do a podcast every week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so 3 days a week. It's called Verdict with Ted Cruz. And we've got just under 1 million listeners nationwide. We beat CNN literally every single week. And so I would encourage everyone subscribe to Verdict. You can get it anywhere you get a podcast. You can actually text the word verdict to 24005. and you'll get a link right back to subscribe to Verdict. And it's designed to give you the information, to give you the tools so that when you're out talking to your friends and neighbors and families and coworkers, that you have the facts on what's happening. So I would encourage everyone to subscribe to Verdict. And then, as you noted, I've got a tough re-election. The Democrats are coming after me. They're trying to beat me. My last race, I won by less than 3%. They outspent us 3-1. And it was the most expensive Senate race in U.S. history, and I won by 2.6%. And so this is a real fight. I would encourage everyone, come to our website. It's tedcruz.org. Come to tedcruz.org, sign up to volunteer, and make a contribution. Give $25 or $50 or $100. The way we're going to withstand $100 million attacking us from Chuck Schumer and George Soros, it is patriots across the country coming to tedcruz.org and make it a contribution, giving us the tools to communicate with Texans and to win the race.
Great. Thank you, Senator Cruz, for coming on with us today. We hope to have you back on another podcast at a later date.
Terrific. I appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Welcome to our panel discussion on the border and ensuing illegal immigration. We just hosted Senator Ted Cruz from Texas on our podcast and heard from him firsthand what he's seeing that's happening on our southern border, our northern border, and how they're addressing it in the Senate and the House. Our distinguished panel that we have with us today is President Julie Harris, First Vice President Martha Jenkins, John L. Fuller, who is the Vice Chairman of the Legislation and Research Committee with myself, and then Jill Tate, who is Chairman of our Fundraising Committee for NFRW and also Vice President of Legislation for the Texas Federation. President Harris, I wanted to go ahead and bring you on first. Give us your thoughts on what Senator Cruz had to say and what are you seeing right now?
Well, a few things that stood out to me. I was taking notes while he was speaking, and we all know how crucial it is for our country that we win this next election. But some things that really resonated with me when he was talking is, we've been talking about the invasion of our southern and northern border, but one of the things he pointed out is that this is man-made. This is the Biden-Harris administration. They want this invasion. And then you have to ask yourself, why? Why would they want this invasion? Well, the only answer is they want to completely change the type of country we are. They want to remake America. And I've said this before many times. They are not following the blueprints of our founding fathers. So the country that they want to turn America into is one you and I would not want to live in. We would not want our children or our grandchildren to live in. This is a very crucial year. He also spoke about the humanitarian crisis, 853 deaths in 1 year, an average of 3 a day. It's a humanitarian crisis. It's cruel to not be stopping what is going on our borders. That is not even counting the abuse. We all know, and we've seen the reports that over 400,000 children have either been smuggled or trafficked through these borders, plus the women who are being sexually assaulted and trafficked through our borders. He talked about the thousands that are owed to the cartels once these immigrants get here. Some of these immigrants are coming for a better life. They're coming for freedom that we have been founded on, that our country was founded on. And unfortunately, when they get here, they're finding out that they are slaves on American soil. And this should not be. This should not be on U.S. soil. So there's a lot of work to be done. He talked about how they're going to put millions into his election and how I think he said he won by maybe 3%. I think he'll win by larger margins this time because I think America is awake. I think America is scared. I know that the women, we're seeing those numbers among women voters come up a little bit because they want safety and security for their country. But I think that this should be a wake-up call. If our women aren't awake, which I believe that they are, we need to get to work. We need to help all of our Republican candidates, but especially those who are in a, what I would say, +2, -2 district, and in Senator Cruz, +3 or -3. We all need to be out there working. This is a seat we must keep for the safety and security of our country, Judy.
I agree, President Harris. I think that as we have developed our initiatives for the year, border being our top initiative, and economy a strong, almost a tie for the top, we have to bring back the strong Republican senators and congressmen that we have there now that are actually doing the job, so that they're ready to step in once they are elected and move forward and get and make these changes that need to be made so we can bring our country back to make America great again. And President Trump won't be able to do it by himself. This is an instance where we are going to have to get out, make sure we get out the vote, and do all kinds of things that I know that we're working on at NFRW right now, that are priorities for us. Martha, tell us what's going on in North Carolina on the East Coast, what you're seeing border related, and just how, we're seeing all of these schools and everything that's going on now with them. I'm not so sure that all of these distractions, they're not distractions, that we're seeing on the campuses of the colleges. I'm not so sure that these aren't planned and instigated by some of the known terrorists and the known gotaways that are coming across our borders. What are you seeing on the East Coast?
Well, Judy, it's surprising that you brought that up, because I was just thinking while Senator Cruz was talking was how many of these so-called students in these protests are actually illegal aliens that are here in our midst, that are here to foment all of this violence and to destroy our country. Obviously, North Carolina is seeing what every state is seeing. Just read a fact this morning that there's, even in North Carolina, there's 500,000 illegals right here. And, we're just one of 50 states. So, how many are everywhere else? We obviously, are seeing pressures on our schools, pressure on our health system, overuse of the emergency rooms. Some hospitals are just closing down because they're going out of business because they're treating people with no insurance and no money to pay bills. And the small rural hospitals are really suffering from this. Also, just less than a month ago, and both of our North Carolina senators and all of our congressmen have spoken out against it as well. There's a facility in Greensboro. It used to be a school facility. It was closed. It was actually, ironically, a Jewish school, and it closed down. I think a different facility, but the Biden administration is using that now to house unaccompanied minors. And Mayorkas even admitted on the stand when he was talking to Congress not long ago at all that they have no idea where all these children are that came across the border, and they're as unaccompanied minors, and they have no idea where they are. So those are just a few of my comments, but this is not sustainable. We obviously have to elect President Trump. This nation cannot continue to exist as we know and love it if we're going to allow our borders to be invaded like they are.
I agree, and it's lack of leadership from the top down. As we're looking at what's going on at UCLA today, as we said, we don't know who's instigating this. I don't think it's coming all from our children and from our college campuses. I think there are instigators that are driving this. So one of the things, Jonelle, I want to turn it over to you in Arkansas. You are vice chair of the Legislation and Research Committee with me. So You've seen, as we've looked at all of these bills that are going through that are passed through the House, and then they sit in the Senate. You know what's going on. Senator Tom Cotton, who is your senator from Arkansas, has some bills out. As a matter of fact, I wrote down one of his latest bills is Senate Bill 4233 that he co-sponsored to prohibit use of federal funds to provide or subsidize housing for illegal aliens before we take care of our own homeless veterans first. Now, you wouldn't think that we would have to have a bill like that, but so Senator Cotton is looking out for the homeless veterans. That's just one of the many bills that's sitting in the Senate right now that's not getting passed by the democratically controlled Senate. What is your take? What are you hearing from Senator Cotton and from your state?
Well, I thank you for bringing up veterans. They have one of the highest homeless rates of any of our demographics across the United States, and it's just so tragic. The mental health problems that they have and the homelessness issue is huge for our veterans. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And Senator Cotton has made a comment, and Senator Cruz made a similar comment, that unless we change administrations, unless we change policies, then nothing is going to get done with any of these great bills that our Republican leaders have in the Senate. It's just such a shame. But as we just heard from Senator Cruz, let's do everything we can to get Republicans elected and Trump elected back to the White House so that we can see some of these great bills passed, so that we can see, for instance, our border patrol agents just have the ability to enforce the law. Right now, I have a young friend down on the border in California, and he sent me his top 3 issues today. And the senator did address some of it. One of them, as we just said, was in just enforcing the law. These people are coming across and they can't do anything with them. If they surrender, they just process them through and they let them go. Of course, they never show up for court dates, or they're never seen or heard from again. Many of them. We have companies, perhaps I shouldn't mention this, Julie, but we have a company right here in Arkansas that has made it known publicly that they will hire illegal immigrants. So this has just got to be stopped. One of the problems they have at the border is that they don't get intel fast enough. They can't get other agencies to cooperate with them, to give them intel, whether these illegals are criminals, whether they have a history, a record. They can't get any cooperation. And so they're letting people go and then finding out later that they should have held them. So there are huge issues with just enforcement. They can't hire people. Nobody wants to do that job. We have young people working for the Border Patrol in California who can't afford housing because the pay is so bad. So they're sleeping in their cars. And it's just absurd, and it's obscene, and it's unacceptable. And we have just got to get our President Trump reelected, and we've got to get more Republicans elected in the House and the Senate so that we can get some of this passed, and we can help our Border Patrol, and we can help for the safety and protection of our nation.
And that is all very true. And as you and I have researched these bills, and we know what's sitting in the Senate ready to be passed, once we can get a Republican president, President Trump in, and we have to get the Senate voted in as a majority also to be able to get these bills. They're sitting there waiting. They are ready. They know what the senators know what needs to be done to correct the situations. It's really important, this election, on getting our senators and our congressmen reelected and strong Republicans elected is going to be critical in this. And I know Julie President Harris has a whole group that's working on this initiative as well. Jill, let's follow up and kind of finalize it with you. Texas is where it all started with the border, and you are with the Texas Federation of Republican Women, and you're on the legislation committee there. You're chairing that. So, fill us in with what you're seeing.
Well, the senator brought up several issues. You each brought up several issues that we know about, the humanitarian crisis. I believe this is the pro-life issue of our time. We absolutely have children who are being exploited that we don't even know where they are. But beyond that, we talk about the invasion, we talk about the infrastructure, et cetera. There are issues that no one even thinks about that's actually affecting our communities. Our nation's food supply. Did you think about our nation's food supply actually being affected by this? What happens is they come across our border here in Texas, they go onto our farm and ranch land, and then they break irrigation systems that then cause our crops to be flooded or not watered at all, and completely lose crops and livestock because they have no water or have too much water. That is actually affecting our nation's food supply. The environmental issues. When these foreigners come across at the southern border on the Rio Grande, their clothes are muddy and wet. So what do? You take them off and you change clothes, and then they just leave them there. We have acres and acres of debris and trash that are contaminating our water systems in the Rio Grande. Where is the liberal Democrats who are all environmentalists? Why aren't they up in arms over the fact that we are completely contaminating our water tables with this? Our nonprofits are stretched to the absolute limit. Nonprofits are here to help people, not determine whether they are citizens or not citizens. And unfortunately, as you said, some of our veterans, some of our Americans, they aren't getting the help they need from our nonprofits because, well, these foreigners are ahead of them in line, and that's not right. And school safety. We had this terrible tragedy in Uvalde a few years ago, and one of the reasons that a lockdown was not immediately called was, well, they thought it was just another border chase. So there are issues upon issues that people don't even stop and think about that is happening with this border invasion, and it's got to be stopped. And you talked about the equipment for our border patrol and what they have and don't have. We had some ladies on our from the Texas Federation who saw that our border patrol agents weren't getting what they needed, and so they started a border care project. And all of our ladies across the state of Texas have been donating sunblock and bug spray and Clorox wipes and water and snacks. Things that, well, quite frankly, they should be getting from the government, and they're not. We've come in to help them with. Again, we've said it many times. This is not just Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California problem. This is an every state problem. And the only way we're going to fix it is to elect Republicans up and down the ballot, elect Donald Trump, elect a Republican Senate, elect a Republican House, and
that's right.
Put our conservative Republican policies in place.
That's right. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, ladies, to our distinguished panel for joining us today. A huge thank you to Senator Cruz for being on our podcast on America's Kitchen Table today and discussing the border issues and illegal immigration with us. We look forward to our next podcast coming up, and it should be on the economy. So thank you, everyone, for listening in and joining us today.